I'm going to talk to you about showing your work on YouTube with CueCam Presenter. So last time I quit my job to pursue music, I read Austin Kleon's Show Your Work, which says how to build a fan base by creating behind the scenes content. Personally, I've never been sure if it was better to be mysterious or open about my approach to production, and I tended to sort of put stuff out and just like, ooh, how did he do it? But I actually found I got a lot more attention by sharing the process than by trying to be secretive. So what are your options for showing your work if that's something you feel like doing? Well, I'm going to take you through some different things I've done over the years and some of the strengths and weaknesses before we sort of get to how CueCam is really, for me, the way forward. So the first option is to get a friend to film your project. So this is let's skip past the noisy bit. This is a video produced of my friend Graham Dunning's mechanical techno project. He happened to have access to a stage in a shared studio with lots of lighting equipment, but I still turned up with my camera, audio equipment, and we spent a day shooting it, and he'd done a really good plan for this as well. But to be honest, like 2 hours of this was spent with me realizing I didn't have my camera slider. I brought the camera slider, I bought my big DSLR, but I did not have a little tiny adapter that lets you mount the thing on the thing. So I ended up getting in a taxi, going all the way across London, going all the way back. And so you just end up with quite a lot of logistics. And then the good thing with this was, though, thankfully, because we're friends, because we know each other, he didn't have like a load of feedback for me. Like I did my best. We did a really good job. We tightened it up. We did some Foley at the end, which is I think what made it really take off. And in the end, it did end up getting, you know, quite a few views. So that was a really big success for both of us. Quite unexpected. Turned out it was like not something we could have predicted. But yeah, that did really well. But it is probably, you know, the most successful thing I've ever done. So, you know, sometimes you just, you get lucky the first time. So that's option one. And it's, I would say, you know, if you can do it, if you can get a friend to help and don't have to buy all the video equipment yourself, it's good. But it you know, it's a collaboration now. It takes a lot of, you know, planning, editing, figuring stuff out, agreeing with each other, you know, sort of being able to follow someone else's vision, like, or being able to have someone else follow your vision. Like that's sort of like, you know, it's a video production, you know, it's, it's a collaboration with everything that entails. So option two is a way that I was doing it back in 2017 when I started doing this. So I was just making videos on my phone. So what does that look like? I was making these little video clips like this. So here's me showing some work I was doing in the studio. And I used a Rode SmartLav Plus, which is, I think, actually this microphone. But I just plugged that into my phone and I was trimming things down using the app on my phone. So these days I'd recommend doing this sort of thing on TikTok using their app, especially because one of the problems of Instagram is that the videos are muted by default. So, you know, it doesn't really work that well for audio stuff. Depends on what you're doing. Your mileage may vary. But yeah, TikTok has a pretty amazing editor. But I would say like option two is reasonably quick, but I find it quite fiddly. Like you're on the phone, you're trying to do it, you're sort of working with an inherently more limited tool. So option three, you know, script and plan shoots using the big boy tools, Final Draft. So for my Leaving the Laptop series on YouTube, I learned how to write with Final Draft because I wanted to use an industry standard tool and like learn the techniques that would be used there, because why reinvent the wheel when this is a whole industry already? So here's how I used it. So I'll sort of like just quickly tell you the structure of a script as I understand it. You've got your location up here. So the way I'm kind of using it is probably not how you'd use it in a real shooting script, but you've got your so it's like location, and then you've got your action. So like this paragraph here will be like what's happening, and then you'll have your dialogue here. So this is dialogue. So you're basically sort of switching between here's the scene, here's the action, here's the dialogue. If you've got multiple people, you'll have multiple bits of dialogue coming back and forwards, and any action stuff here, and then you'll kind of know where the cuts are by the new scenes. so that sort of, each of these scenes sort of tells you kind of like what sort of footage you're going to need, where you're going to need to shoot, what you're going to do. So this is a bit of a deep dive into that project, which sort of ended up, how long is this video? It's like 5-minute video. It took me a month, right, to get this 5 minutes video. And yes, it's sort of like, it's got quite a lot going on.
Go a long way before mystery is possible. Any angle.
Dressed up in different things.
Players are a bit harder.
All these crazy.
They have unmatched control over their visibility. Faces out.
There's sort of crazy graphics all the way through it, and I go into this in a blog post, which you can sort of have a look at for yourself. But you see, just to show you, like I bought clothes to kind of like, which I returned afterwards, just to sort of dress up in different costumes. I did some fake motion tracking, didn't work very well. I sort of dressed myself up. I tried to figure out what that would look like. I tried to do it on a board, but then I was like, no, I need to do this as graphics. So, we end up, here's sort of what the room looks like.
Busy day filming yesterday, and this is sort of like the aftermath of it all. Camera's still here. Things set up.
You end up having to do a lot of weird stuff. This is like my shooting checklist, just me ticking things off and making sure I've got all the content. I've got like, there's graphic design stuff that I had to do, like title sequences and things, and then here's like the sort of all that other stuff, motion graphics, layering. I did the music, I did all this custom stuff. I'm sort of doing my voiceover in a cupboard. So you can see like this ends up being an awful lot of work, and you can kind of dig into that just for like quite a short video, and I think that's okay. But it's a whole thing. So I would say that's like option 3 is just go for it. Go full YouTuber, and it is effective, I think, but it does require a lot of expertise, and it requires a lot of tools, and it requires a lot of editing, post-production. So you can't really shortcut any of the steps. There's no way around the fact that you just basically need to know how to do this stuff or get help doing it. So I would say there's a better way, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. So what's the better way? Well, I think the biggest video production time sink is editing. So on a phone, it's too easy to make mistakes and you end up repeating work multiple times just to get a half decent result. Or if you go with a full-blown Final Cut Pro edit, you'll have to learn how to make a lot of decisions about which footage to use and what you can throw away, and you just end up going into infinitesimal detail just to make something flow naturally, because you're building it from these disparate elements. So I'm sort of like, I've done that a couple of times on some big projects, but it's painful kind of to deal with that kind of footage and stuff, especially if you just want to get an idea out. So how do we avoid editing and make it a lot easier to plan? Well, that's where CueCam Presenter comes in. So I designed CueCam to take the essence of a final draft script, so what I showed you with the action and the dialogue and stuff, and merge it with a video production workflow that lets you shoot videos in one take, which is essentially what I'm doing here. You may see a couple of edits here and there because I've got a cough. So you might do a bit of tidying up in post or combine a couple of different takes, but it's infinitely easier to get a naturally flowing video and without having to do all that media management and timeline editing stuff that you otherwise do. So with video, with CueCam, you can record a video directly. So you can draft a script, add title graphics, and bring in screen shares and video clips and stuff as you go. Each card's content becomes the text in your teleprompter or on your iPhone screen if you're using that to shoot. So you don't have to learn everything off by heart to get a decent take. And so here's what a script looks like. This is for something I did last week, an Infinite Music Machine Resurrection video. You see we've got some, the titles are just sort of inline. So we're just writing a script and we've got a certain sort of markdownish syntax. So it's not quite final draft, but it's a way of sort of going, okay, this is going to have some text on the screen. And you see, right, that's resulted in some text being on the screen. So, and then we've got like, just some stuff to teleprompter. So that's just me on my own. And then down here, I sort of go into a screen share. So we're building up a script and a sequence of things in advance, much like a script, but actually instead of just going away and printing it on a bit of paper and checking off each thing, we could just like shoot it to camera as we go. Here's where I brought in some other stuff. So you can take in some video clips and trim them down. So this was, I had an older video, so I sort of like clipped out some bits and bobs. And you know, if you did have some fancy title graphics and Apple Motion stuff, you could just bring those in as video clips. And you can always like, you know, edit it down and sort of trim it across boundaries and sort of have different, you know, different notes for each section of the video and sort of follow through like that. And then here's some other stuff, you know, in that particular video, I just wanted to quickly show what I've done. Like this was literally like a 15-minute job to show something just at the end of the day that I'd done. So, you know, in this case, I did have some press, so I was able to sort of use this sort of syntax, this markdown syntax to, you know, all I do is put a little caret there, little arrow there, and that turns into a quote and it gets nicely presented. So it's really easy to bring stuff onto the screen. And as you can see, you can always like draw on it with your iPad as well. Here's how my desk looks for when I'm recording these videos. This is what I'm looking at right now. You know, I happen to have a pretty decent camera stuck in this teleprompter. So this is an Elgato prompter. I've got, you know, a couple of big lights and my laptop is here and then a second screen. So I tend to share stuff on the laptop screen and then sort of have the second screen as more of a production thing. And then I'm using a Rode Wireless Go 2 as my microphone and a little cheap in-ear headpiece just to sort of like monitor audio so it's not coming out the speakers. I made the all this Infinite Music Machine, you know, only took a few minutes to assemble. I recorded the video in a couple of takes. And, you know, this is the sort of thing that's going to come out. Back so, in 2013, light on the code side, depending on sort of. So I'm able to sort of share my screen. I'm picture down here without having to really do anything extra. I've got my titles coming in. I'm sort of like cutting away to those clips. We know that played. You know, if you want to polish this stuff, you can always take it into Descript or Final Cut Pro. Mostly I just like, you know, fix the audio a little bit on that one. And there's always going to be something that you have to fix probably, but it's so much easier if you've just got one timeline, you can just snip it through. So that's CueCam Presenter's editless workflow. You create your script. I'll just jump back and sort of show you that again. You create your shooting script essentially, and then you're going to press present up here or record, and that's just going to start the presentation. You're going to be able to just read off or just remind yourself what you need to say, bring in those assets, bring in anything you want to show, and then you've still got a video, so you can always come back to that and edit it as much as you need to later. All right, so thank you for watching. I hope you're going to find that helpful. If you're interested in CueCam, it is CueCam.app. So you can just download that, start playing with it right now, and you're going to have a really good time. You're going to find out that a lot of stuff that you thought would be really hard is actually pretty easy.